We are live.
Yes. Good evening. જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ, જય લોહાણા મહાપરિષદ, જય જલારામ. આજની 2023ની બજેટની અનાઉન્સમેન્ટ પછી આજની જે આપણે મિટિંગ રાખવામાં આવી છે અને વી આર વેરી ફોર્ચ્યુનેટ. હું દર વખતે કહું છું કે આપણા એનર્જેટિક સતીશભાઈ જે પ્રેસિડેન્ટ છે, વી આર વેરી ફોર્ચ્યુનેટ છે કે એનર્જેટિક પણ છે, એમનું વિઝન પણ છે, વિઝનરી છે. સાથે આપણા જે બિઝનેસના જે હેડ છે, પીઆઈ જે આપણું બિઝનેસ ફોરમ ચાલે છે, વિજયભાઈ કારિયા, એમનો બી સહકાર અમારા જે એલએમપી સીએ અને ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનલ્સને જે સહકાર આપેલો છે, સુપર્બ છે. અને સાથે આપણા સુભાષભાઈ ઠક્કર બી લંડનથી જોઈન થયેલા છે. વી આર ફોર્ચ્યુનેટ. હું આ બધાને વેલકમ કરું છું. આપણા વાઇસ પ્રેસિડેન્ટ જીતુભાઈ છે, જય ઠક્કર ઇઝ ઓલ્સો જોઈન જસ્ટ નાઉ. So I am welcoming you all. Dineshbhai Kanabar is with the finance minister. He is also joining within 2-3 minutes. So I think we'll start the meeting, Satishbhai, and we'll start the meeting with our LMP anthem. બધાને રિક્વેસ્ટ કરું છું કે LMP anthem માટે આપણે ઊભા થઈશું બધા.
Series of events to change the pattern of thinking of Peter and the other apostles, the other leaders of the early church. And that change in direction has reverberations for us today, thankfully, 2,000 years later. So the title of my message today, as we continue this second message in the series Unprecedented, the title of today's message is A New Direction. Last week we talked about a new thing. This is a new direction. And sometimes God has to redirect us. That's the point I want to make. Sometimes He has to change our thinking a little bit. Because contrary to what many of us may think about ourselves, we haven't quite gotten it all figured out sometimes. You ever come to that realization? All right.
Ramachandram Sharanam Prapadyai Shri Ramachandram Sharanam Prapadyai Shri Ramachandram Sharanam
धर्म मर्यादा सहित निज वचन पालन
જય મહાપરિષદ જલારામ બાપાની
જય જય લોહાણા મહાપરિષદ. જેમ સતીશભાઈ ગઈકાલે જ બજેટ અનાઉન્સ થયું ને લોકોને બજેટ સમજતા હજી 4, 5, 6 દિવસ લાગે, પણ આપણે લોહાણા મહાપરિષદ અને LMP CA એન્ડ ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનલના અંડર બેનરની અંદર આજે વિજયભાઈ આપણા હેડ છે જે આ પર્ટિક્યુલર સેશનના, તો એ બધાની મહેનતથી આજે સેકન્ડ ડે જે આપણે આજે દિનેશભાઈ કાનાબાર જે આપણા વન ઓફ ધ બેસ્ટ, વી આર વેરી મચ પ્રાઉડ કે આપણા લોહાણા દિનેશભાઈ CA જે આપણી જોડે આજે બોલવાના છે. જય ઠક્કર ઇઝ ઓલ્સો ટોકિંગ. આપણા લંડનથી આજે સુભાષભાઈ ઠકરાર બી જોઈન થયેલા છે. તો આ બધાના આજે અમે સાંભળશું બધાને. તો એ પહેલા હું રિક્વેસ્ટ કરીશ અમારા ડાયનામિક અને વિઝનરી પ્રેસિડેન્ટ જે એને હિસાબે આજે બધા જે એક્ટિવેટેડ લોકો છે નેક્સ્ટ ડે બજેટના, દિનેશભાઈ બજેટના નેક્સ્ટ ડે આપણે આજે પ્રોગ્રામ રાખી શક્યા છે. ઓલ આપણામાં જે એનર્જી પોર કરે છે એ આપણા પ્રેસિડેન્ટ છે સતીશભાઈ વિટલાણી. એમને રિક્વેસ્ટ કરીશ કે અમને બધાને આશીર્વચન આપે. સતીશભાઈ.
દિનેશભાઈ, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ. બધાને જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ, જય જલારામ, જય મહાપરિષદ. એક તો ફર્સ્ટ ઓફ ઓલ થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ દિનેશભાઈ. આઈ નો દેટ ધીસ ઇઝ અ વેરી બિઝી પીરિયડ. અમને એક જમાનો યાદ આવતો તે નાની પાલખી વાળાને સાંભળવા માટે લગભગ બધા આગળથી બુક કરાવતા, એની અંદર ધક્કામુક્કી કરતા જતા. એની અંદર મને જોબ આપવામાં આવ્યો કે આઈ મસ્ટ say a few things about Dinesh Bhai. I must introduce Dinesh Bhai. I don't know whether you really require any introduction, but since I have been given a task, that Bharat Bhai
Satish Bhai, you should say only 2 things. I am a Lohana and I am a chartered accountant. Nothing more.
No, but let people. No, that is really very very proud. હું દિનેશભાઈ તમને હું આઉટ ઓફ એક જ મિનિટ લઉં. તમારે સુભાષભાઈએ આજે એક આપણું ચાર્ટર્ડ બનાવ્યું છે ફોર અવર LIBF આફ્રિકા માટેનું, and you really would be very proud that what kind of work Subhash Bhai has been putting in. Of course Vijay Bhai divas raat kaam karta tha yaar, but very very good. Dinesh Bhai Kanabar is the CEO of Dhruva Advisors. Dinesh Bhai is a winner of Asia Tax Practice Leader of the Year 2020. He is a stalwart in the industry and has over the decades been recognized by his peers as amongst the top tax advisors in India. His ability to relate the business strategies of clients to the tax and regulatory environment has been recognized as unique and has played a critical role in developing solutions for clients. Prior to founding Dhruva, he had series of leadership positions across several large professional services organizations in India. He was the Deputy CEO of KPMG India, Chairman of KPMG's tax practice, Deputy CEO of RSM & Company, and Head Tax and Regulatory at PwC. He is a member of the National Executive Committee of FICCI and is currently a mentor of the FICCI Committee on Taxation. He has also worked with the Government of India on several policy committees. He was a member of Rangachari Committee. Rangachari Committee constituted by the Prime Minister of India to deal with tax reforms in the IT/ITS sectors for evolving safe harbor rules. This is welcome, Dinesh Bhai. Thank you very much, once again, for taking our time. Thank you so much, Jay Bhai. Jay Bhai is probably coming for the second time, on Zoom,
Yes.
Thank you so much. Vijay Bhai, thank you. Subhash Bhai, thank you very much, and all of you. Let us hear now Dinesh Bhai, and the text, the eminent personalities, instead of wasting time on my speaking more about, Lohana Mahaparishad, that, we otherwise also keep talking. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Over to you.
Dinesh Bhai, sir.
Thank you. So a very good evening to everybody. When the finance minister rises to present a budget, there are a number of expectations, and this year's expectations were that first there was sort of an apprehension that this is the last formal budget before the election, and therefore will this be a populist budget, giving away doles and things like that. So there was an apprehension on the one side. There was an expectation that the economy needed fillip, that India's preeminent position needed to be cemented, And therefore, to do that, the government needed to undertake a lot of expenditure on capex, infrastructure, etc. And therefore, people were wanting to see what does the government do in that direction. And finally, was this whole question that on tax laws, does the government keep on tinkering as it does year after year, or will it really give us a stable tax regime where we know that the laws are not likely to change periodically and not be tinkered around? And I think on all those fronts, if I may dare say, the finance minister has done an excellent job. If I look at the first item where there was this apprehension that will this be a populist budget, it hasn't been. Sure, there are policies which have been announced, tax policies which have been announced, which benefit small taxpayers, medium and small enterprises. But by no stretch of imagination can you ever call this budget to be a populist budget. It is really a dynamic budget. It is a budget which. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So,
Perfect.
so this in fact is a budget which is pure growth oriented. The outlay on capital expenditure on infrastructure project has been increased by a whopping 33%, which is a lot. Whenever normally sees an increment of 5%, 7%, 10%, here we have seen a 33% increase. And let me tell you, not only is there a 33% increase in the outlay, but fiscal discipline has been maintained. The collections for taxes have been rather robust. So it is after a long time that we have now come to expect month-on-month GST collection to be in excess of 150,000 crores. The direct tax collections this year are 20% ahead of the budget. And what the finance minister has projected is that next year there will be a further growth of 11%, which looks very, very eminently possible. Net-net, what I would want to put out is that the budget numbers are realistic. Things don't seem to be have pushed under the carpet. In fact, in some cases, the government has been rather conservative. So, for example, the disinvestment target is a mere 51,000 crores. And if you see that IDBI Bank is about to go on the block and the government is expected to realize about 32,000 crores, then we have only another 19,000 crores to cover up to go with the entire disinvestment target. So again, all in all, the numbers look realistic. The numbers look very appropriate. Enough and more allocations on the defense side, education side. A number of very, very interesting policies have been announced. And how do these policies pan out will depend, of course, on the implementation. But if I just provide to you a perspective, we are now talking about a Vivad Se Vishwas scheme on arbitration awards. Those who deal with the government are aware that when you go into infrastructure projects, there is always this gap between what the government expects and what the private sector does. And this invariably leads to arbitration. And in such arbitration, then monies are locked up. People sort of find themselves at a very, ILFS, for example, had very serious issues on account of monies locked up in arbitration. So a Vivad Se Vishwas scheme is being put up, under which the two parties to the dispute can come together and reach a settlement. One will have to see the contours of the scheme to see how does it actually get effected. But again, a very, very welcome scheme. Again, a lot of thrust on digitization. It's interesting to note that the government has set aside a huge amount of money for artificial intelligence, something which we had thought it to be left to private sector, but the government is not at all lagging behind. A very, very welcome. If I look at direct tax proposals, I could break up the proposals into 4 parts. The first part I would talk about is in relation to individuals and taxation of individuals. So, insofar as corporates are concerned, currently we have 3 tax regimes. A 15% rate of tax for corporates, which are new manufacturing companies. Here, of course, there was an expectation that the sunset date of 31st March 24 will be pushed back. That hasn't happened. Maybe it might happen next year. And then we have 25%, which is the new tax regime, where you do not get any deductions or exemptions, or a 35% rate of tax, where you get deductions and exemptions. And as I have seen in practice, 80-90% of the companies have moved to the new tax regime rather than go for deductions and exemptions. But there's a huge amount of litigation, and many times deductions and exemptions turn out to be very, very illusory. In contrast, the new tax regime for individuals did not find favor. Most individuals, more than 90%, actually opted for the old tax regime where they could get deduction for a house rent allowance, interest on housing loans, etc., rather than sort of go for the new tax regime where the rate of tax was lower. And in an effort to make the new tax regime a default regime and what people would be encouraged to go ahead with, rather than go on investing monies in LIC and things like that, even if those are not needed, the government has, what it has now done is, A, increase the threshold exemption limit from 2.5 to 3 lakhs, reduce the maximum marginal rate from almost 43% to 39%, and reduce the slabs in between. All of it applicable only and only to those who opt to go for the new tax regime. I was asked this question on several channels that do I now believe that people will definitely opt for the new tax regime? I don't think there is a cookie cut answer there. Each individual, each taxpayer will have to sit back, reflect, and we as practicing chartered accountants will need to help them make that decision as to whether the deductions and exemptions which they are claiming and which are non-controversial will lead to a taxation which is lower or higher than what would apply under the new tax regime. And if you find that the rate of the quantum of tax is lower under the new tax regime, or the chances of litigation are going away, then you might well advise clients to opt for the new tax regime. So all thrust on the new tax regime and people wanting to move to simplicity, etc. And I'm very, very sure that's a matter of further year or two before the old tax regime will be totally scrapped. Several other changes, small in nature, but gives a particular direction. So two things which the government has done, and I don't think very many people have noticed this. A number of changes have been brought about where we were trying to take advantage of the law by making some smart interpretation. And the government has brought about amendments to take away all of this. And let me give you some examples. So for example, there has been this whole controversy that if there is an asset which has been sold on which capital gains are realized and the asset has not cost anything or the cost is indeterminate, then following BC Srinivas Sethi, can we say there is no capital gains tax liability? And of course, the law has been amended from time to time to rope in goodwill, to rope in certain other non-complete payments. But yet this controversy continues that can we find some loophole in the act as a result of which we can say that this asset did not cost me anything and therefore the gains that I have made are not liable to tax. And the government has now made a wholesale amendment to the act to say that any asset which has not cost you anything, the cost will be treated as nil, and therefore you will have to pay the entire capital gains tax on the gain that you have made. Now, you can just understand that these are smart ways in which you are trying to escape tax liability on what is admittedly your income. And the government is saying, don't try and take advantage. Or take, for example, another amendment which has been brought about, which is to provide that, and this was an amendment which was made last year. So from time to time, there has always been this provision in the Act and in Section 28 that any perquisite or benefit which arises from exercise of business or profession is liable to tax as income of the recipient. The wordings there are whether such benefit or perquisite is convertible into money or not. Last year, because the government was not able to monitor such benefit or perquisite, Section 194R was introduced. I remember Bharat Bhai's daughter Khyati having written a brilliant paper on the subject. And then the question is that if there is a withholding obligation on somebody, then that person will ensure that taxes are withheld and the monies will not go tax-free. But there has been this whole controversy that when the section uses the word whether convertible into money or not, cash itself can't be converted into money, We have Mahindra and Mahindra judgment of the Supreme Court. And again, people were trying to take advantage of the situation to say, this is not convertible into money. This is actually money and therefore not covered by Section 28(4). And the law has been amended to provide whether convertible into money or not includes money itself. And rightly so. You are making a benefit. You are trying to take advantage of a smart interpretation of a provision, and that provision can't be allowed to go by. Yet another amendment, and this is with regard to a residential house, where the proposition is that if you earn capital gains and those capital gains are invested in a residential house, then you cannot get the entire gains as exempt. You can get only up to 10 crores of investment as covered by capital gains tax exemption. On balance, you have to pay tax. I just actually literally 20 minutes ago completed my interaction with the finance minister. And the proposition which I put to her and which I think is very logical is that while the amendment to Section 54F may be warranted, that is that if you are selling equity shares and you made a huge gain and you want to invest that gain in a residential house, which you may actually not be needing, you are doing it only for tax purposes, and you want to put a ceiling of 10 crores, understandable. But if you have a residential house under Section 54 and you buy another house instead of that, why should a 10 crore limit apply? Because you might have a house, an ancestral house, the values may have gone up very significantly, your gains are more than 10 crores, but you are only substituting one house for another. That Section 54 amendment is not warranted. When I put it to the finance minister, she heard, nodded. I don't know whether it will change or not change, but yet another change which has been brought about. Or look at two other changes, which is the second thrust of the government, that they will not allow you to carry out an arbitrage. And let me explain to you what I mean. So there is this whole new proposition that if you take out an insurance policy and the premium is more than rupees 5 lakhs per annum, then when the policy matures and you get back the money, then that will be treated as your income and you will not be covered by the EEE regime, and the money which you receive will be liable to tax. Of course, this applies to new policies which are issued after 1st April 23. And what is it that the government is trying to do here? It is a matter of fact that 80-90% of the policies which are sold by the insurance companies, life insurance companies, are actually investment propositions. Your insurance agent will come back and show this is the rate of return you are getting, etc., etc. Over a period of term, 15 years, 20 years, when you get back the money is tax-free. But it is actually investment income. It is in the nature of interest. And it is only fair that when you get back that money, you are asked to pay tax on that money because it is really in the nature of investment return. It is interest, and it is not really an insurance product at all. So what the government has done is, if the money is received by heirs of a deceased, then the exemption continues to apply. But otherwise, if the money goes back at the end of the term, then the recipient has to pay tax. Again, if you just understand the philosophy, what the government is saying, I am looking at the substance of the transaction. In substance, this is not an insurance product. In substance, this is nothing but a savings product. And when you get your return of savings, it is liable to be taxed. Or a similar provision, for example, which the government has brought about, which is on market-linked debentures. I'm sure all of you are familiar. On the market-linked debenture, companies issue debentures. Those debentures are listed. And when at the end of the period, the debentures are sold on the market or redeemed, you claim it to be capital gains, long-term capital gains, taxable at 10% because these are listed securities. And what the government has come back to say is that the appreciation in the value of debenture is not an inherent appreciation. It only represents accumulated interest. And that interest should be taxable in your hands. So what they have now provided is that if there is a market-linked debenture and you sell it, the proceeds, the difference between your investment and the redemption proceeds, will be treated as short-term capital gains liable to tax at full rates. Again, if you see the thrust of the government, what the government is trying to do is to say, we will tax the substance of the transaction, not the form of the transaction. And since we are all practitioners, tax practitioners, chartered accountants on this call, professionals, etc., I would want to leave these two thoughts with you, that as you go and advise your clients and you see the series of changes that have been brought about. So, for example, there was this hyper technical interpretation that if you paid education cess, since it was not a tax, although it was a part of a tax, it is tax deductible. We went on advising our clients, and sure enough, the government brought about a retrospective amendment. Or you look at whatever changes I spoke to you today, which is purely hyper technical interpretation of law. The government is not going to accept it. It's going to change the law retrospectively. Number one. And number two, transactions will be taxed for their substance and not merely the form in which the transaction is structured. And we as practitioners need to be very, very alive to this entire proposition. Couple of other amendments I would like to talk about. One is with regard to startups, some welcome changes. The proposition is that the recognition of startup date has been extended by a year, very, very welcome. And the current proposition that if there is a change in shareholding of a startup by more than 51%, losses will not lapse for a period of 7 years. That 7 years has now been increased to 10 years. Very, very welcome. Another interesting change is with regard to non-banking financial companies not being subject to limitation on deduction of interest. So until now, if your interest was paid to a related party, it was covered by the 30% limitation on EBITDA. That no longer applies, primarily because financial institutions have multiple shareholders. Those shareholders themselves lend money. The monies are lent at an arm's length. Once the monies are lent at an arm's length, why should it be that there should be a restriction on the deductibility of interest? So that has been taken away. Another very interesting amendment which has been made is with regard to REITs and InvITs. I will not go into complexity because not all of us might need to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, but just so that we are alive and can have a meaningful conversation with our clients, is that there was this whole concept that when an asset is transferred to a REIT company, which in turn transfers it to an SPV, what you do is by creating a loan transaction. And when the loan is repaid and the money goes back to the unit holder, is it taxable or is it not? And a view, again, a very technical view was taken to say that, and as per the provisions as they are worded, such a repayment of loan is not income at all. Now that resulted in a double non-taxation, both at the time of infusion and then at the time of return. And the government has now come back to say that such return is liable to tax. Where I think the government has gone wrong and overboard is that if that gain arises by way of redemption of units held by an InvIT holder or a REIT holder, then it is liable to tax, agreed, but it has to be liable to tax as capital gains and not as ordinary income. This evening when I spoke to the finance minister, I requested her to reconsider this. And again, she understood the problem and she agreed to consider it sympathetically. So those are the key changes. One other change, and this change baffles me totally, which is on a collection of taxes at source. When we send monies out under LRS scheme, there is a 5% TCS, and that 5% TCS has now been enhanced to 20% for remittances other than for medical purposes or education. And I can't understand why. This is for a very simple reason, that TCS is not really a tax which is levied on you. It is only a collection of tax at source, because when you send monies by way of LRS, there is no income at all. It is only to permit the government to track that here is a person who sent the money. Are we able to track that when he earns income, that income is offered to tax? And TCS is, of course, to be set off against your normal tax liability. And what the government has proposed is to enhance this rate from 5% to 20%, other than for remittances for medical and education purposes. It totally baffles me, because if the intention of TCS is only to track remittances, then why increase the rate of tax to 20%, which is almost punitive? Remember, however, that this is not a tax. This is only sort of a payment of an advance tax, and you can set it off against your installment of advance tax and sort of get credit for it. But there is a lock-in of money, and that is a matter of concern. So these broadly are the provisions which I thought are very important, which I'm sure impact all the members. I'd be happy to take questions as we go along. Thank you all so much. I hope you got a fair sense of what provisions are and what do we need to do vis-a-vis them.
Yeah. Thank you, Dinesh Bhai, for the super presentation in a very lucid and very simple language to understand. We all Lohanas across the global. Because આપણા લુહાણા બધા આખા વર્લ્ડમાંથી તમને સાંભળી રહ્યા છે, અને મોર દેન 110 લોકો આજે આખા વર્લ્ડમાંથી આ મીટિંગ એટેન્ડ કરી રહ્યા છે. કન્ઝિક્યુટિવલી સ્ટાર્ટ થઈ ત્યારથી વધતા અત્યારે 110 111 લોકો તમને દિનેશભાઈ સાંભળી રહ્યા છે. સુપર પ્રેઝન્ટેશન, બહુ બધા ક્વેશ્ચન્સ આવશે દિનેશભાઈ. વી વિલ કવર ક્વેશ્ચન્સ લેટર ઓન. સુભાષભાઈ ઠકરાર જે લંડનથી જોઈન થયા છે, એમના જે ઓવરસીઝ પર્સપેક્ટિવ જે પણ છે એમની માટે સુભાષભાઈ વાત કરશે. બજેટના રિલેટેડ તમને જે પણ એનઆરઆઈઝ લોકોને શું ઇફેક્ટ થઈ છે એના માટે આજે સુભાષભાઈ વાત કરશે લંડનથી. વેલકમ સુભાષભાઈ. સુભાષભાઈ, સતીશભાઈ, સુભાષભાઈ મ્યુટ પર છે કે?
ના, મ્યુટ પર નથી. સુભાષભાઈ જે છે ને અનમ્યુટ છે. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, we are not able to hear him.
Okay. So can we go ahead with the Jay?
Yeah. હું સુભાષભાઈને ફોન કરું છું.
હા.
તમે please kindly go ahead. Don't let us not wait.
So after the marathon batting by the દિનેશભાઈ કાનાબાર, આજે અમારા સાથે એક યંગ ચહેરો છે. હું એમ નથી કહેતો કે અમારા દિનેશભાઈ યંગ નથી. દિનેશભાઈ તો હજી યંગ એને યંગ છે. અમારા બધાને આટલું બધું જ્ઞાન આપે છે. નાઉ આફ્ટર દિનેશભાઈ આપણો જય આપણી સાથે આવશે. બટ બજેટમાં તમે જોયું કે આખા વર્લ્ડની નજર ઇન્ડિયા પર છે, અને ઇન્ડિયાની નજર પર જેમ આપણે જોયું કે બજેટ ચાલતું હતું ત્યારે અચાનક માર્કેટ નીચે આવવા માંડ્યું દિનેશભાઈ. તો હું સોચવા માંડ્યો કે આ શું થયું. લોકોને ખબર પડી કે માર્કેટ ઇઝ ફોલિંગ ડ્યુ ટુ સેક્શન 54 F ના કેપિટલ ગેઇનના ડિડક્શન્સને લોકોને ખબર પડી કે આના માટે થઈ છે. LICની 5 લાખની કેપની ઉપર જે ટેક્સ છે એના માટે આ ઇસ્યુ થઈ રહ્યું છે. યા થર્ડ જે ન્યૂ રિઝિમ ઇન્ટ્રોડ્યુસ કર્યું એમાં લોકો કન્ફ્યુઝ છે. તો આના હિસાબે માર્કેટ પડી રહ્યું છે. તો આ બધી વસ્તુ આજે ના જવાબ આપવા માટે આપણે સાથે one of the best આપણો જય ઠક્કર. he is also, we are proud Lohana. Jay Thakkar is a very good research analyst for the capital market. તમે જઈને ઓલવેઝ જોઈ રહ્યા છે અલગ અલગ પેલા પર ઝી બિઝનેસ પર, CNBC આવાસ પર, કે જય કા જેકપોટ જે જયનું તમે જોઈ રહ્યા છે ઓલવેઝ. એનું એટલું બધું સ્ટડી છે જયનું, અને એ બધી આજે જય જે રિસર્ચ કરે છે કેપિટલ માર્કેટ પર સુપર જઈ રહ્યો છે. જયને આજે પહેલા બી જય આપણા આ પર્ટિક્યુલર ઓલા LMPના ઓલા પર ચિંતનની સાથે યુથ ઓલામાં આવેલો હતો. એણે બહુ સરસ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન કરેલું. અને આજકાલ જય ઇઝ વર્કિંગ વિથ ધી શેરખાન BNP જે પરબીઝ છે એની સાથે કામ કરી રહ્યો છે. તો આ જે ડાયનામિક જય છે, હવે આપણે જયને સાંભળશું. ઓવર ટુ જય for next 30 minutes. Jay.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Bharat uncle, and Badane Jai Jalaram. And thanks for providing me this opportunity to be sharing this platform with all of you, dignitaries and the veterans and experienced people. I just heard Dinesh sir, and it really gives me, and in fact it's giving me a proud moment. I'm sharing this platform with him. Satish uncle, you people have really proved yourself in your own work, and definitely providing me this opportunity. Thank you so much, and for addressing all our people in the Lohana community. And I'm sure that, I'll be presenting my views on the budget which are impacting the capital markets, the sectors. જે બધાને હેલ્પ થશે મે બી જાણવામાં કે કયા સેક્ટર માટે પોઝિટિવ છે, કયા સ્ટોક્સ માટે પોઝિટિવ છે. એઝ અ ડિસ્ક્લેમર આઈ વુડ લાઈક ટુ સે વન થિંગ દેટ જે બી સ્ટોક્સ કે સેક્ટર્સના બારામાં મારા વ્યૂ હશે આજે, one can definitely consult their own financial advisors as well before taking any action on the same. I would not be providing any targets for any, I would not be saying that, these are the buy or sell recommendations. I would just be saying that what is positive for which sector and what is negative for which sectors and stocks. So that would be very much compliant as per the regulators as well, keeping in mind that as well. Right. So thank you again, everyone. And as I start, so I would say that it's a capex push to sustain the growth momentum. I mean, that's what the budget, line or tagline I can share with all of you is that. And I think that overall this capex push, it will definitely help India to grow and achieve their, GDP targets as well. I mean, we saw that, government has any which ways managed to bring down the fiscal deficit number. I mean, it was anticipated or expected that it would be somewhere around 6.4, 6.5, but it came below 6, which was very well managed. And also, we have been seeing continuously that the GST collections have been robust. I mean, we have seen recently the second highest number, and the tax collections also have gone up. In fact, direct taxation, the way government is definitely working in favor of the middle class. I'm sure Anati, there are going to be more people who will be contributing towards the taxation and filing the returns. I would rather put that way. So aap je increase karo je slab, which will definitely help people to invest, save tax. By the same time, it will encourage many to file the returns as well. So a number tanadi vadare javse agar going forward. It will not be impacting negatively. And sectorally, I would now would like to share my views on different sectors and stocks, wherein this budget has really helped. And I would say, as far as Bharat Uncle, you said that the kind of volatility which we saw on the day of budget, that is yesterday. So budget was positive. I would say we give a thumbs up to the budget. Finance Minister has definitely proved once again that she has really come out with a very nice budget. That is what we believe. In fact, market was rejoicing that as well. Market ma pade saru ek move bhi joyo to because of the taxation part B માં આપણે જે જોયું છે, part B નું જ્યારે બી announcement start થયું ત્યારબાદ તો markets માં આપણને એક સારું upward momentum બી જોવા મળ્યું હતું કાલના સેશનમાં, budget sessionમાં. Unfortunately, what's happening is that the certain group on which now the global I would say rating agencies are now targeting. I mean, especially if I name it, because we all know. So Adani Group is under the scanner or the radar, I would say overall. Not to comment much on it, but that has been one of the reason for market volatility. And profit booking, and RBI has also asked for the clarification from all the banks as far as the status of their exposure to the Adani groups is concerned, or maybe so things or talks regarding that group is what is creating some volatility in markets. Otherwise, if you see the Fed outcome as well yesterday has really been very positive for the global markets as well. So should have been positive today, but nevertheless, a budget was good. So we stick to our budget analysis. So volatility in yesterday's session was not because of the budget. Budget was quite positive. As far as sectors are concerned, I would say that consumer goods sector, I think that, or rather we would say that a house view is that, Sher Khan, is that, the budget impact is positive out for consumer goods. Sectoral view, however, is neutral. We would say that, but the things going forward will be good for ITC, stocks like ITC, Tata Consumer, Balrampur Chini, Marico, HUL. These are the few stocks as far as the consumer goods sector is concerned are looking good. Increase in tax rate on cigarette by 2%. That is what was announced yesterday, and it had gone up by almost 16% is what we believe. And that in fact initially had a negative impact. And overall we see that these companies would definitely see good momentum going forward. As far as it is not going to affect their sales volume is what we believe as far as ITC is concerned. Ethanol blending, I mean, basic custom duty on the denatured ethyl alcohol reduced to nil from 5% now. So the chemical is used in ethanol blending by the companies. This is quite a positive for the companies such as Global Spirits and sugar companies. Sugar companies like Balrampur Chini should definitely benefit because of this ethanol blending. Government's focus on it. We would also say that there is a boost to consumer sentiment because of the rural or agricultural sector. Maybe agriculture fund for agri startup in rural area, budget of almost 220 crores for horticulture crops. Then agri credit to be increased to 20 lakh crores. I mean, they are providing multiple benefits, I would say, to the taxpayer under the new regime. So government has tried to provide some boost to the consumer sentiment in rural as well as urban markets. And that's quite positive for the consumer goods sector. So that's a positive impact on this sector. Consumer discretionary as well as a positive impact. We all know, I mean, companies like Indian Hotels or maybe Lemon Tree, hotel industry is definitely, going to benefit quite a lot. And as well as, other stocks like textile names, if I say, then Aditya Birla Fashion, maybe Trend. These are the stocks which should do good, and consumer discretionary overall sector is quite positive. Our sectoral view is positive. The budget impact is also positive. Why is it positive for the hotel companies? The reason for that is that almost government is planning under the domestic tourism to develop 50 destinations with details of all the relevant aspects to be made available, and launch Swadesh Darshan scheme. So government has focused on the tourism as well. I mean, jewelry is one industry also wherein government has encouraged indigenous production of LGD seeds and machines to reduce import dependency. I mean, government has also reduced the import duty on gold. The custom duty rate on LGD seeds used in manufacture of rough lab grown diamonds have been reduced from 5% to nil. So it's going to be positively impacting the jewelry industry or companies like Titan or Kalyan Jewelers as well. So the year is where we have a positive outlook as well. Other sectors are like oil and gas sector. It's very positive for them as well. And our sector view is also positive. I mean, Reliance Industries or maybe BPCL, HPCL, IOC, all of these names or all of these companies are likely to be positive going forward. The reason being is that the overall capital outlay for the OMCs, oil marketing companies. So the capital budgetary support of almost 30,000 crores for these OMCs is what we have seen. This could be a good relief from auto fuel under recoveries for these companies. So that will help definitely for these companies to grow. Priority capital investments of almost 35,000 crores towards energy transmission and net zero target. I mean, investment of almost 10,000 crores have been announced for setting up the CBG plants. So these are the announcements which are positive for oil and gas sector. The power sector budget impact has also been positive. Our sector view is also positive on power sector. I think that stocks like Power Grid or maybe NTPC could be the beneficiaries going forward. I mean, the viability gap funding support for battery energy storage systems with capacity of 4,000 megawatts, and then government support of almost 8,300 crore for interstate transmission system as well for evacuation and grid integration of almost 13 gigawatt renewable energy from Ladakh. So production of almost 5 MMT by 2030. So power sector is almost, I would say, overall positive impact is what we are going to see out there. As far as agri, fertilizers and chemical sectors are concerned, as I said, government has also focused on the rural areas, on the agri. So obviously agri stocks or maybe the fertilizer stocks or sectors are going to do good. The chemical stocks or the sectors are going to do good. And there is a positive impact of the budget on these sectors, as well as our overall sectoral view is also good. I mean, chemical stocks like Sumitomo Chemicals or maybe SRF, PI Industries, I mean, which very much into the agrochemicals, I would say, protecting the crops and all. I mean, that's one of the leader, I would say, in the industry, PI industry. And they've got good types as well internationally. So these are the stocks and sectors which are likely to be positive going forward. I mean, fertilizer subsidy has been provided. The provision has increased to 2,25,222 crore from earlier budget provision of almost 1,05,222 crores. So it's more than double. I mean, fertilizer subsidy of almost 1,75,103 crores for FY24. So budget allocation of almost 2,200 crore for horticulture crops, aggregated to be increased by 20 lakh crore. I already mentioned that. And also custom duty on a few of the acid grade flower spark cut to 2.5% from 5% earlier. We also have a positive impact on metal and mining from the budget, and the overall sectoral view for metal and mining is also good. I mean, till dollar index globally, I would say. I mean, that was one of the reason in calendar year 22, wherein we saw that volatility in the markets because of the Russia-Ukraine war, which had taken dollar index above the levels of 110, and all the other currencies globally against the dollars were reacting negatively, I would say. But then dollar has cooled off quite a lot, almost more than 10% from the higher levels, and that should definitely have a positive impact on metal globally. But then from the budget perspective, if you say then exemption of basic custom duty to continue for raw materials for manufacture of CRGO steel, ferrous scrap, and nickel cathode. So for these, I think it's very much good for the companies like Tata Steel, or maybe JSW Steel, Jindal Steel and all. And infra capex of almost 10 lakh crores and railway capex. I mean, this has been one of the biggest railway allocation. I mean, had it been a separate railway budget, this would have been the biggest railway budget, I would say. So almost capex of 2.5 lakh crore. That's going to drive the steel demand going forward domestically. We have a positive impact on automobile, auto ancillary sector. I mean, government has been focusing on auto sector as far as EVs are also concerned since a couple of years now, under PLI scheme as well. I mean, production linked incentives have also been provided. So of course, auto is one sector which I also believe is going to be a sector of this decade until 2030. I mean, stocks like Maruti or maybe Exide Industries, Amar Raja Batteries. I mean, anything related to auto ancillaries, maybe tire stocks. They're going to do good. I mean, the reliability of these tire stocks is a lot on the raw material crude, and the volatility but impacts it. But then overall long-term outlook for crude is not much positive. I would say it's going to be sideways to negative. So that will help tire stocks also to see a good upward momentum. I mean, say increase in custom duties on import vehicles. So there has been an increase in custom duty of SKD from 30% plus 3% surcharge to 35% now. And that's going to be definitely helping the domestic companies. Positive for Maruti Suzuki, M&M, Tata Motors, as increase in custom duty would increase the prices of imported vehicles. So domestic vehicles or domestic manufacturers ke liye acha ho gaya, right? And custom duty exemption on import of machineries. Custom duty exemption on machineries for manufacturing of lithium ion cell for EVs. As I said, government is focusing on EVs. So wahan ke liye ena mate custom duty exemption api didi, and imported vehicles mein custom duty badhari didi. So from both the side, both the angles, if you see, auto is definitely looking good. Overall sector, telecom sector has been neutral, I would say. So I would not be speaking much on telecom. It's been neutral out there. Banking mate budget positive hatu, sectoral view positive che. I mean, all the private sector banks, so maybe large public sector banks like SBI or Bank of Baroda are looking good, and private sector banks are definitely looking good. So MSMEs to receive additional 2 lakh crore collateral free loans under credit guarantee scheme with 1% interest. Rebate through infusion of 9,000 crores from government. That's positive. Allocation of almost has increased to 80,000 crores, approximately up by 66% year on year. Affordable housing under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So that's definitely positive for housing finance companies. So I see that along with this, real estate should also be picking up. So our sector outlook on the real estate is also positive. It's just one negative budget impact has been covered by Dinesh sir as well. I'll be coming to that also. So income from insurance policies where the premium is over 5 lakh will not be exempt now and applicable for policies issued from April 23. So these are the overall positives for the banking sector. I mean, it's been covered by Dinesh sir as well. Income from market linked debenture is proposed to be taxed as short-term capital gains. So that's negative. That's negative for NBFCs. So MLDs na hisabe taxation je thase NBFC mate kharab ase. I mean, the cost of MLDs will now be higher in line with other NCDs, as income from MLDs would now be taxed as an individual tax rate versus 10% long-term equity gains. So because of this, I would say it will be negative for the NBFCs. Okay, National Financial Information Registry will be set up to serve as a central repository of financial and ancillary information. This is positive. It will facilitate efficient flow of credit, promote financial inclusion, and faster financial stability. Right. Positive impact we have seen on infrastructure. I mean, I already said that કેપેક્સ કરી રહી છે ગવર્મેન્ટ, તો ઇન્ફ્રામાં બૂસ્ટ કરી રહ્યા છે લાસ્ટ ઘણા 1-2 વર્ષથી. we've been seeing government has been spending good, so it's always good for the infra companies like KNR Construction or maybe L&T and PNC Infratech. All sector is looking good. So I think there has been a lot talked about infrastructure. I would not be talking much, but I would say that yes, Gram Sadak Yojana outlay has been kept flat. So that's comparatively, and other sectors, if you talk about, then it's positive for the cement stocks. If there is a lot of spending or a lot of capex happening, so આટલું બધું construction કે infrastructure ના પાછળ થવાનું છે, then definitely cement stocks માં તો definitely આપણે સારું કે cement sector માં તો આપણે સારું momentum જોવા મળશે જ, અને સારા large cap stocks છે, Ultralec Cement or Shree Cement, Nifty 50 stocks છે, Dalmia Bharat or JK Lakshmi Cement among the other mid and small cap stocks if you see. That's good. So cement is good. Building material માટે ઘણું પોઝિટિવ છે. પ્રધાનમંત્રી આવાસ યોજના માટે મેં જે તમને કીધું, so that's definitely good for the building materials as well. I mean, stocks like Kajaria Ceramics or maybe Century Plyboards, Supreme Industries, APL Apollo Pipes and everything. I mean, these are the stocks. Building materials માટે બી ઘણું સારું છે. રિયલ એસ્ટેટ માટે બજેટ ઇમ્પેક્ટ નેગેટિવ છે, sectoral view positive છે. DLF, Oberoi, I mean, the Oberoi has a very strong balance sheet as well. So Dinesh sir already mentioned about it, that capping of deduction available from capital gains on investments in residential house under section 54 and 54F were where the cost of new asset does not exceed 10 crores. That's a negative. And the income received from the business trust by manner of repayment of debt to unit holders will be taxable with effect from 1st April 24. So which was earlier exempted. So that's negative for the REITs as well. I mean, the REITs like Mindspace, maybe Brookfield India REITs, IRB InvIT, Power Grid InvIT. So REITs માટે negative છે. Budget impact is not good. It's it's good for the capital goods, defense, consumer electronics as well. Renewal, if I talk about the railways, highest ever છે, તો રેલવે સ્ટોક્સ માટે તો સારું છે. ટીટાગર વેગન હોય કે સિમેન્સ હોય, ટેક્સમેકો રેલ હોય. ડિફેન્સ માટે ન્યુટ્રલ. I mean, this time people have been talking about the Indian government is focusing too much of defense. Defense માટે સારું બજેટ તૈયાર કર્યું બી, અને ડિફેન્સમાં આપણી ઇન્ડિયા સારું કન્ટ્રી ગ્રો બી કર્યું છે. But this year allocation to Ministry of Defense was just at almost 6 lakh crores approximately to 5.25 lakh crores I would say in FY 22-23. So defense ma એટલું allocation નથી થયું આ વખતે. So it's been neutral out there. Otherwise it's positive for the renewable energy I would say. So KEC Construction or KEC International or maybe Kalpataru Powers and others are likely to benefit because the interstate transmission system for 13 gigawatt renewable energy from Ladakh with an investment of 20,700 crores out there. So that allocation is definitely going to help the renewable energy. It's neutral for IT. So IT mateka etlu natu ayu budget ma, so I will not be speaking much on IT. It's very positive for the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. I mean, I think that now at least the pharma stocks or maybe healthcare stocks are likely to benefit from here on. I think there are a lot of positive announcements out there. Allocation to development of pharmaceutical industry increased from 100 crores to 1250 crores. I mean, it's likely to be distributed between pharmaceutical promotion and development schemes, and there are many other details. But overall, I can say in a nutshell that it was positive for pharma and healthcare. So net, if you see that overall budget impact for most of the sectors was positive, right from oil and gas to maybe pharma or maybe building materials, cement to infra. It's been only maybe taxation part ma middle class માટે સારું કરી દીધું, exemption વધારીને. So overall budget I would say is not negative, it is positive, and I have shared my view on most of the sectors and stocks I could do. Thank you so much.
હવે અમારા લુહાણામાં એક જય સતીશભાઈ, અમારા LMP લુહાણા જેકપોટ છે, સુપર જય, રિયલી આપણા લુહાણા બંધુ માટે બહુ બધા ટિપ્સ આપી, બહુ બધું કીધું કે આ સારું છે, આ સારું છે. સતીશભાઈ, આપણે LMP જેકપોટ પૂછીએ જઈને, આપણે LMP જેકપોટ શું છે જય? અહીં છે સતીશભાઈ તરફથી?
LMP જ એક જેકપોટ છે સર. So I think anyone who is a part of LMP and anyone who is Lohana is definitely benefiting out of all the efforts which you people are taking, and definitely I would say કે જે તમારું કમિટમેન્ટ છે Satish Uncle Nu Tamaru and others, and બધા જે participants બી join થઈ રહ્યા છે. I think LNP itself is a jackpot.
Thank you.
Now Subhashbhai Thakrar is also chartered accountant, London થી join થયા. He is the former chairman of London Chamber of Commerce. Very much બાર લંડનમાં જે આપણા લોહાણાને રિપ્રેઝન્ટ કરે છે. રિયલી વી આર વેરી મચ પ્રાઉડ. સુભાષભાઈ ઠકરાર કાલે જે ઇન્ડિયાનું બજેટ આવ્યું, તમે અમારા દિનેશભાઈ કાનાબાને સાંભળ્યા, ઠક્કર તમારા જે ઓવરસીઝ જે પર્સપેક્ટિવ તરફથી કે તમને ઓવરસીઝના એનઆરઆઈ લોકોને શું બજેટનો ફાયદો એ તમારા તરફથી અમે સાંભળવા માંગીએ છીએ. સુભાષભાઈ ઠકરાર.
Thank you, Bharatbhai. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Jalaram, and Jai Raghuvanshi to everyone. My apologies earlier that I got disconnected. હું અત્યારે લંડન નથી પણ યુગાન્ડા છું, કંપાલા છું. હોલિડેમાંથી આપણી કોન્ફરન્સ થવાની છે ફોરમ, એના ઉપર બિઝી લાગી ગયો છું. બરાબર. So thank you very much. Of course, I've known Dinesh Bhai for many years, and Jai Bhai, I've heard him. Both of them are very talented and very informed. I cannot add a lot more to the detail that they have done, but I'm giving you a perspective from UK, international, NRI perspective. I can definitely say that this is a good catch-up budget. It is firing on all cylinders. I think it has picked up quite a bit, in infrastructure, personal taxation, agriculture. The whole program on millet is a very interesting one, particularly when I look at it from Uganda perspective. So it's picked up quite a lot, and the per capita income of India has improved so much in the last 5 years, and it's looking to get even better. I think India is on a march, particularly with this kind of mature budget, which is dealing with a number of important things. It is definitely going to bring in the necessary growth that India is regularly needing and wanting. In the past, I remember that whenever I used to follow the budgets, whenever they made announcement on infrastructure expenditure, reality subsequently was that that money never got quite fully spent. But now I think one has got a lot of confidence with this present government that infrastructure spending is taking place. It is also, you can see it, witness it. Whenever you travel to India, you can see a lot of improvements everywhere. So that is a good thing. India is no more a poor nation. It's a fast-growing economy which is to be respected. And I think that all over the world, we are looking up to India rather than down to India as it used to be years ago. This budget is a growth budget. You can see it because if the infrastructure money gets spent and also the personal tax allowances are allowing people to have more spendable money, it is all going to fuel the economy in various ways, and I think we were going to see that. The only negative that I can pick up is as what Dinesh Bhai covered earlier, which is the LRS and the extra surcharge that will take place, which means that the economies like UK, where we do receive remittances from India under the LRS scheme, will be taxed more and therefore might put a damp. I'm a bit surprised about the non-allowance of GST on the CSR spending of the corporates. It's a beautiful provision that India has got, which is to say every certain size of corporates should spend X percentage on CSR, which probably is India is the only country in the world that has something like this for the charitable sector. But it's sad to see that the government has decided that the GST on that is not reclaimable by the corporate entity. That will have a bit of a dampening effect because I think the corporates will now decide to spend that percentage inclusive of GST, I guess. So I'm a bit concerned about that. But I think overall a very, very positive budget and overall a very good budget, a mature budget, which is elevating India into another sphere. And I'm excited about that, looking forward to experiencing and enjoying that growth that takes place. Thank you very much. Jai Shri Krishna.
ભાઈ તમે ઓલ ધ વે ફ્રોમ આફ્રિકાથી અમારા ઇન્ડિયાના બજેટ માટે તમે તમારા રિવ્યુ આપ્યા. હવે આપણા એલએમપીના જે બિઝનેસના જે પિલર છે.
Bharat, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Subhash Bhai would like to take leave probably, and so to say thank you very much, Subhash Bhai, for your presence. And, really, I mean, you studied it also very well, of course, you being a chartered accountant. So no wonder, that in a short span, you studied it very well. And, your observation, regarding, this CSR is really praiseworthy, I'm sure, this is really something concerned. But I'm sure, that CSR companies, at least Lohana CSR companies, we have one in front of us, they are not going to be so bother about, this thing, small percentage of GST, and they will not reduce, their funding, Thank you so much, for your presence, Subhash. And all the best.
Thank you so much.
We wish you all the best about your meeting, with the investment minister, because we look forward to see her, in Uganda. And in the meantime, would you like to, since there are about 100 people here and maybe more on YouTube, would you like to invite all of them, being a convener of LIBF, to everybody? Would you like to say something about LIBF?
Thank you so much, Satish Bhai. It was your inspiration, but I followed up with this idea that we're going to do this conference. First of all, come to Uganda, come and experience this beautiful country. I think many of you might not have been to Africa or Uganda. You will have a positive experience. Secondly, this is the first ever gathering of this Lohana community. Apni community 2.5 million ni andar che. We are a minority in the world and very powerful in many, many ways, and many, many things. Apni history che the Kshatriya class che, તમે history jo to we are a very unique community, and that we are now applying in the business world. We are entrepreneurial. Uganda ma તમે જો to some of the top business houses are Lohana owned. Kenya ma che, Tanzania ma che. તો તમે આવો, પ્લીઝ આવો, પાર્ટિસિપેટ કરો. સ્પેશિયલ રેટ્સ કહેરા છે. તમે ઇન્ડિપેન્ડન્ટલી યુગાન્ડા ટ્રાવેલ કરશો તો તમને આટલા ખર્ચામાં નહીં થાય. These are very special negotiated rates that you can come and stay in a beautiful resort just by the Lake Victoria, by the shores of Lake Victoria. અને તમને મજા આવશે, આનંદ આવશે, અને ઘણું શીખવાનું મળશે, because we've lined up a lot of good content for you. So please come. Namaste. Jai Shri Krishna.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you so much, Subhash Bhai. Looking forward to see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Over to you, Bharat Bhai.
યસ, જેમ મેં તમને કીધું કે વિજયભાઈ કારિયા એ આપણા લોહાણા કોમ્યુનિટીના એલએમપીના આપણા જે પિલર છે, બિઝનેસ કોમ્યુનિટીના પિલર છે, અને અમારા બધા બી એલએમપી સીએ એન્ડ ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનલના બી પિલર છે. તો આજે, અને હી ઇઝ ઓલ્સો CMD ઓફ રેવિન કેબલ. આજે કેબલના વન ઓફ ધ બિગેસ્ટ મેન્યુફેક્ચરર ઓફ ધી કન્ટ્રી. વી આર વેરી મચ પ્રાઉડ કે વિજયભાઈ તમે આજે એલએમપીના બિઝનેસ ફોરમને આજે રિપ્રેઝેન્ટ કરો છો, એલએમપીને તમે LIBF ને બી રિપ્રેઝેન્ટ કરો છો. હવે અને યુ આર વેરી ગુડ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીયલિસ્ટ છે, તમે મેન્યુફેક્ચરર છો, તો હું તમારા વ્યૂઝ જાણું છું. અને LIBF માટે બી તમે જે આટલું મોટું જે પ્રોગ્રામ કર્યા છે આપણા લોહાણા કોમ્યુનિટી, એના માટે બી તમારા પાસેથી સાંભળવા માંગીએ છીએ. ઓલ ટુ યુ વિજયભાઈ.
Thank you so much, Bharat Bhai. Thank you, Satish Bhai, for this opportunity. So, taking over from where Subhash Bhai left off, my urge and appeal to everybody is that you must try and come to Uganda for the conference, because it will pose business opportunities which perhaps people would have never dreamt of. It's when you move out of a comfort zone and you meet new people, and you're going to meet a lot of new people out there, it's going to provide you a lot of impetus in your business, whether you are a business person, whether you are a professional, or whether you are into service. So do study the brochures. If there is anything that you want to know, we are always open and welcome to any kind of suggestions, any kind of questions that you may have of us. And I hope it poses for everybody a great business opportunity. It's not just a conference, there is also an exhibition conjoined with it and going to be inaugurated by the President of Uganda. Very, very power-packed 3 days of conference. And the first day, that is the 19th, it's going to be a networking session. So it is from 19th to the 22nd of March is the conference. 23rd, we are planning to have an excursion to the various factories and sightseeing places in Uganda. So you must try and reach there by the 19th afternoon or evening. And as I speak, in the chat box already, the dynamic Lohana office has already put in where you can get more details from. Coming, આપણે આ બજેટની વાત કરીએ તો દિનેશભાઈ, જયભાઈ, સુભાષભાઈ વાત કરી લે, પછી ઓલો જસપ્રીત બુમરાહ આવીને શું બેટિંગ કરશે? We are in that kind of position. But from a business perspective, and I would say I will try and be very honest and frank in what a businessman would feel about not just the budget, but the overall scenario. Budget, I would say, very good from the perspective that the government has not gone overboard in spending. And it's been a very balanced budget in that sense. This is the last budget which could have a major impact for 1 year before the election. So it does seem that the government has already made up its mind that it's going to win the next election. This budget has been pretty balanced. The second thing is, of course, you read positives and negatives about the budget, and if you put on any television channel, તમને એમ જ લાગે કે ભાઈ ગવર્મેન્ટ કે છે બજેટ બહુ સારી છે ને ઓપોઝિશન કે છે બજેટ બહુ ખરાબ છે. Now both are perhaps prepared speeches. But 2-3 things which I say are good from the industry, from the manufacturing perspective, and I come from a manufacturing background. So હમણાં જે જયભાઈ આપણને કીધું was from a perspective of investment into the share market. But most of the people in the business, their mainstay is coming from business and not just investments. And of course, he gave very good insights on where to invest and which sectors to invest. I myself come from the electrical segment and the power segment. And we feel happy that, first of all, infrastructure spend has been increased by 33% to 10 lakh crores. It is unprecedented. But આપણે એક સ્ટેપ પાછળ જઈએ ને જોઈએ કે government has already put in a situation where Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat has already kicked in. And therefore, even the spend in infrastructure, the spend in defense, the spend in healthcare, the spend in medical, the spend on building new roads, new bridges, new railways, etc., is all beneficial for the local industry. Almost all of us used to bring in phones from outside the country. So the phones were prohibitively expensive. Now these phones, and I believe iPhone 14, which I saw one video of Vaishnav where he says that iPhone 14 is being exported from India. So this is a good boost for the industry. But Betran areas which I feel yet require a lot of correction, and that is on the part of simplification of taxes, simplification of rules and regulations. હવે ઘણી બધી નવી પ્રોવિઝન્સ આવેલી છે ઇન્કમ ટેક્સમાં કે ભાઈ કે ટેક્સીસમાં GST, I mean, people can come and demand anything from you. They take a lot of pleasure in going through everything. I think there is something where the government needs to place more faith in the industry, in the common person. હા, જે લોકો ચોરી કરે છે એને તમે બ્રુટલ રહ્યો, એમાં કોઈ વાંધો નથી, પણ તમે બધાને એવી રીતે ટ્રીટ નહીં કરો. This is one thing which I have been continuously even representing to the government, and I hope this happens. Coming to the options for the industry and coming for the options for the businessmen, number one, income tax slabs have been increased. Now, this is in the new regime. So I think ek simple vastu hu karat ke bhai, I would put in right from day one in the budget that, okay, this is the new regime and this new regime will kick in 100% from this date. I won't give options of old regime and new regime. And I would say that here, this is what I'm going to do. Number two, I would keep the simplification for people or for businesses who are smaller. Of course, MSME માટે government એ કીધેલું છે કે 2 લાખ કરોડ રૂપિયા એ લોકો credit guarantee scheme ની અંદર એ લોકો they will put in 9,000 crores. But how much of that will actually turn into the credit for the MSMEs is a matter of conjecture. But definitely, the government is doing a lot that it can for the industry. In fact, startups mate, and since I am also part of a government committee of the Bombay Stock Exchange, where the government gives a grant of up to 20 lakh rupees for startups. It is a grant. Tamare paisa pacha apwani jarurat nathi, but there is a committee which evaluates your proposal and sees whether it is having an impact, not having an impact, and how it can fructify. So 3-4 areas where the government is really doing well is in being ahead of the curve in terms of the industry and in terms of what is required for the industry, including the startups. But where the government is little bit behind the curve is on the compliance matters. Je loko as a GST and you're complying with the e-way bill requirements. But that e-way bill requirement has brought in a whole new dimension altogether. Yes, okay. We are trying to be, the government is trying to be very transparent and trying to be very open about the transit materials. જ્યાં ઘણા બધા લોકો એ લોકોનો માલ either without invoice મોકલાવતા હતા કે greatly undervalued, etc. But આનું compliance આપણું કેટલું વધી ગયું છે અને એની જે cost વધી ગઈ છે e-way bill માટે કે ભાઈ એક દિવસમાં કે 2 દિવસમાં ટ્રક ન પહોંચે તો again you have to revalidate the bill. So there is a whole new administrative cost that has come in. I wish that the government looks at this part. Honestly, they're trying to simplify, but I think at the same time, that simplification has to happen with also honesty that the government needs to place faith in the industry. I wish that, rather than merely trying to rectify some of the laws, we people, the chartered accountants, do represent some of the issues that are faced because we've come much higher on the ease of doing business. But in actuality, all business people say that the cost of doing business has gone up and that should be rectified at the earliest because small businesses will not survive otherwise if we keep on and on and on bringing in more and more compliances. Now, one of the things about the compliance part also is that some of the compliances have become kind of draconian, that your income tax officer can ask you to get your inventory audited by a certified cost accountant. And for a small business, for a medium-sized business, that is kind of very difficult. And how does he go about it? ધંધો કરશે 5 માણસની ઓર્ગેનાઇઝેશન હોય 10 માણસની ઓર્ગેનાઇઝેશન હોય તો એનો ધંધો કરશે કે એની ઇન્વેન્ટરીનું કોસ્ટ ઓડિટ કરાવશે. So certain such areas need a lot of rectification. I would suggest that we make a list of all such areas, and we present this to the government. In fact, one of the ideal opportunities is that, you know, our member of parliament and a fellow Lohana, Shri Manoj Bhai Kotak, and he is on the finance committee as well as on the commerce committee. He can definitely take up some of these matters with the government. So if we put this up to them, and the best thing is that he is coming to Uganda with us. So aparne पण opportunity rese, you know, to give certain suggestions to him, and he's a very dynamic person. So I'm pretty sure he'll be able to do a lot of things. So if in the next 1 month or so, you know, Bharat Bhai, if our CA committee and legal committee can prepare a list of some of the areas which are pain points for businesses and industry, I'm pretty sure something can happen. You know, at least something will move, and if not, at least our voice is there in the government. And ક્યારે ને ક્યારે તો સુધાર લાવશે, because હું પોતાના experience થી કહું છું કે આ government બહુ proactive છે. Nirmala Sitharaman herself is very, very proactive, and when she was Commerce and Industry Minister, I had the opportunity to interact with her a number of times. Ek mere letter upar, you know, which was a complicated matter in commerce and, you know, with customs duty and DGFT, etc. One mere letter sent to her, and she got the law amended in a matter of 15 days time. So I'm pretty sure she will act on it, provided that, you know, we put it up properly. So my suggestion to everybody would be that let's keep a list and let's have somebody compile this list. Maybe Bharat Bhai can take this onus on himself. I know that he's pretty dynamic and pretty well connected with everybody. So we'll be happy to provide this list. Let's procure it from the industry also. And let's start moving. Let's start ensuring that the Lohana voice is now heard in the government, and we stand on our own right and might and start doing things which the government will hear, because we've got also Pradeep Bhai, who is also part of the Pradeep Bhai Khimani from Junagadh, who's well connected with the government. We've got a few of the members of parliament, plus we've got lots of other influential people. Dinesh Bhai was there with us. And I'm sure a lot of the people out here also who are there, and I can see so many people who are well-versed. Jay is there. Let's do something which really benefits our industry, our country, and of course, most of all, our Lohana community. Thank you. Beshi Krishna, Jai Jalaram, Jai Mahaparishad, and once again looking to meet all of you in person in Uganda. Please do be there.
Wow, Vijayભાઈ, superb energy. તમે એટલી બધી એનર્જી બધા આપણા લોહાણા લોકોના પ્રમા પોર કરી, એટલું બધું લોકોને એનર્જી આપી. તમારા સજેશન્સ બી બહુ સારા છે. અમારા લોહાણા LMP CA એન્ડ ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનના કમ્યુનિટી માટે બી તમે એક સારા સજેશન્સ આપ્યા. ડેફિનેટલી સતીશભાઈની જે એક આઈડિયા હતી કે હવે આપણે આપણા સજેશન્સ બી દર વખતે આપણા બજેટના પહેલા આપણે આપવા જોઈએ. તો ડેફિનેટલી બજેટના પછી પણ જે આપણા ઇશ્યુઝ છે, we will definitely prepare the all the gist and give it to the respective people of our Lohana community, like Manoj Bhai Kotak આપણા જે છે. તો ડેફિનેટલી આ બધું કરશું આપણે. Thank you for a very successful program of Union Budget 2000 attended by throughout the world of this total Lohana community. I'm very much thankful to today's first speaker, Dinesh Kanabar, જે આટલા બિઝી હતા. આજ ફાઇનાન્સ મિનિસ્ટર જોડે એમની મીટિંગ. વી આર વેરી મચ પ્રાઉડ કે આટલા બિઝી શેડ્યુલમાંથી પણ આપણા લોહાણા કોમ્યુનિટીમાં આજે એમણે મોર દેન 30 મિનિટ્સ એમણે લેક્ચર આપ્યું. બધાને બહુ બધું સારું આ બધું જ્ઞાન આપ્યું. બહુ બધું નવા જે એક્ટના બારામાં જે આવ્યું એ બધી ઇન્ફોર્મેશન આપી. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ દિનેશભાઈ કાનાબાર. Next is our Sachin Tendulkar, Jay Thakkar, Jay no jackpot, Lohana માટે. Superb Jay. આજનું જે આ બધું સિલેક્શન તારું હતું, જે ચિંતન યુથ સાથે જે કોમ્બિનેશન કરાવ્યું ચિંતન અમારા સર ચિંતને, સુપર્બ, મજા આવી, સુપર્બ ઇન્ફોર્મેશન. પણ તું હજી આવા ને આવા જેકપોટ અમને આપતો રહેજે વિથ આમના સતીશભાઈના પરમિશનથી તને કહું છું અને વિજયભાઈના પરમિશનથી કહું છું. વી આર વેરી મચ થેન્કફુલ ટુ ધી વિજયભાઈ કારિયા, સુપર. આ બધી વસ્તુ કીધી ડેફિનેટલી અમે કરશું ને તમારા અંડર અમે જે લોહાણા સીએ એન્ડ ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનલ જે ચલાવીએ છીએ વિજયભાઈ, મોર દેન 800 મેમ્બર્સ અમે જે અમારા બંને ગ્રુપમાં છીએ અને 10 થી વધારે લોકો ડેઇલી નવા જે સીએ પ્રેક્ટિસ કરે છે, જે ટેક્સ કન્સલ્ટન્ટ છે, ટેક્સ પ્રોફેશનલ છે, એમના જે પણ ઇશ્યુઝ આવે છે આપણા બધા સિનિયર લોકો વિધિન 5, 10, 15 મિનિટ્સ એ લોકોને સારા રિપ્લાય આપે છે, સારા આપે છે, બહુ સારા લોજિકલ આન્સર આપે છે. વી આર વેરી મચ ફોર્ચ્યુનેટ કે આ આપણે ગ્રુપ ચાલુ કર્યું અને ગ્રુપ ચાલુ કરવાથી આપણા લોહાણા બંધુઓને જે ફાયદો થઈ રહ્યો છે, ડે બાય ડે હજી અમે નવી વસ્તુ કરી રહ્યા છે અને હજી સારી વસ્તુ હજી એક્ટિવેટ સારું કરશું. જે સતીશભાઈને નવા સજેશન હોય છે તો હજી એને સારી રીતે કરશું. વી આર વેરી મચ થેન્કફુલ ટુ ધી સુભાષભાઈ ઠકરાર ઓલ્સો ફ્રોમ લંડન અને આફ્રિકા. હવે જે LIBF-માં જે બધા જેમ વિજયભાઈ કીધું બધા ફરીથી LIBF-માં 19 માર્ચે મળશું. મારો સન ચિંતન કૃપાલી આર ઓલ્સો જોઈનિંગ ફોર દેટ પર્ટિક્યુલર પ્રોગ્રામ. ડેફિનેટલી જય, તું પણ આવી રીતે કંઈક જેકપોટ આવીને આપતું ત્યાં બધાને, બહુ મજા આવશે. જીતુભાઈ અમારા વાઇસ પ્રેસિડેન્ટ બી સ્માઇલિંગ પર્સન ઇઝ ઓલ્સો ધેર. વેરી મચ થેન્કફુલ ટુ સતીશભાઈ, અવર ડાયનામિક પ્રેસિડેન્ટ, જેણે અમને ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી આપી કે તમે આવો પ્રોગ્રામ કરો. તો ફરીથી આવા નવા પ્રોગ્રામ કરતા રહીશું. સતીશભાઈ, થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ ફોર ગિવિંગ અસ બ્લેસિંગ્સ એન્ડ ધી ઇન્ફોર્મેશન. અને જ્યારે અમને સપોર્ટ જોઈએ તમે આપો છો. સો સી યુ અગેન નેક્સ્ટ યર ઓર બિફોર દેટ એની અધર કાંઈ પણ આવ્યા વસ્તુ ડેફિનેટલી આપણે ફરીથી આવો પ્રોગ્રામ રાખશું. ગુડ નાઇટ ટુ યુ ઓલ. અને મોર દેન 110 લોકોએ એટેન્ડ કર્યું આપણા વર્લ્ડમાંથી, લોહાણા બંધુ અને એમને બધાને પણ થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ. જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ, જય લોહાણા મહાપરિષદ.
Thank you.
થેન્ક યુ સો મચ. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ સર. જયભાઈ, એક તમારો પ્રોગ્રામ આપણે કરીએ. જયભાઈ, આર યુ ધેર? જયભાઈ
ફાસ્ટ છે ભાઈ, નીકળી ગયો.
યા યસ લેફ્ટ. ઓકે, ચાલો, સરસ. ઓકે, બાય ચિંતન.
બાય બાય, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ અંકલ, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.
Bye.